Today is Saturday, April 30th, 2022. Welcome to the Survivor Fans Podcast. I'm Joanne.
And I'm Stacy.
And this is the listener feedback show for Survivor 42, Week 8.
2 shows a week. We do a recap right after the episode happens. Then come Saturday, it's time to hand it over to the super fans.
Woo-hoo.
See what they thought. See what kind of predictions they got for what we might be expecting next. And sometimes, like this past week, you get a really deep subject. Because the game does reflect society. It's one of the reasons we love the game. We get that small version of society where the people come together and make up their rules, but that means you get everything that comes with a society.
Yeah, and you and I were talking earlier about we had both come to a greater appreciation for everything that happened in the tribal council, because it gave us the opportunity. If you take it, you don't have to. Sometimes we just go, don't want to deal with it, kind of thing. But we look back a few days later now, and you were so caught up in, no, that data is not right. It's not right. It's not accurate. You can't say that. It's not right. And that's all you could see because, again, as Jonathan did, he had his own reaction. He went into his own experience reaction,
right,
which is fine. It's just everybody was misinterpreting. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, actually, that, watching Marianne and Drea have their reaction from their life experience, then Jonathan from his life experience. And I watched you, and you just couldn't let go of it for 24 hours of that's not accurate, and you go to, and I've seen you do this before, even in work things.
That's where it comes from.
It's where you're like, so-and-so said so-and-so, and that is not correct, and you would spend all this time getting documentation and going back into the next meeting, bringing it up again with proof that they were wrong with those stats.
When you're troubleshooting, when you're dealing with very technical subjects, it's important to get the facts right. And when you don't get them right, you come to the wrong conclusions and the problems don't get fixed.
Yeah.
And so that engineering mindset, whether I was doing network engineering or whether I was configuring a firewall or whether I was designing a whole new security architecture, whatever it is, from that perspective, you want to have your facts right because you get challenged on your facts. You go in for peer reviews where you look at these things, and if you have those things incorrect. So anyway, that's where that comes from for me. It's like we always called it the engineering mindset.
And I'm thinking,
you hear
why
things,
can't you let that go? You can't
because
stop.
And I can't see the bigger, more important issue.
No, not in the minute. You were just absolutely. And we decided it was like, well, you were just absolutely in your emotions. It didn't have to make sense. None of that in the moment. It wasn't about, and their reactions wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about gameplay.
Right.
It was strictly emotional. And I thought I can see from their different perspectives, and I could see how Jonathan would go there immediately because that's probably his life experience. He grew up, a big guy. He's from Alabama. People would have expectations at times that, he's prejudiced, blah, 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 blah. He's had to deal with those kinds of issues himself. So, of course, that's where he immediately went to. He was feeling like attacked, which wasn't the case.
A cascading effect of those emotions. There's
exactly.
a knock on. So I didn't mean to invalidate anything she was saying.
No.
But I was absolutely caught around the axle.
I knew that about you, but the way it was coming across. But I thought then after the fact where we were able to have our thoughts, process, and then come back and go, oh, yeah, well, that was my reaction. That was my emotional reaction. And how interesting we felt that was, that probably everyone had to go back and look at their own emotional reaction.
If they could afford to, like you said, if
Yeah.
they had the budget at the time,
Yeah, to
dig into something deep
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
But I thought I ended up feeling, wow, that was really a nice opportunity to process information and learn more about other people and ourselves.
Sure.
And so
Another
I kind
teachable
of
moment from Survivor.
appreciated it from that point of view. I don't know, it just gave me a little different spin and perspective on it, and you had just like calmed way down completely. Like, because I really, for maybe 2 full days, you were just, and I went back and looked up, I'm like, why are you bothering to do all that? You know, it wasn't like you weren't very busy already.
Yeah.
And you're like, and I'm thinking, he just can't seem to let this go. And but it was really interesting when you did, and then look back. And
It's important to work through those things, just like how fast Drea was having to try to process things. She had no time to really dig into that, and so she made a conclusion, because it's a hugely time-constrained contest, and even more so in the limits of tribal council.
Well, yeah, and that's with us, is when we do our recap, it is, you know, very shortly after it airs. We have 0 time to process. We're busy setting up all the equipment and updating the JSFL website, getting this, you know, the stats ready, all of that, and then we just sit down and go. And it's like we had no time to really process our own reactions before you speak. And I thought, and that's interesting, because it really is good to sit back, listen, and observe, if you can keep your own emotions out of it enough to do that.
Yeah.
And kind of think about it, mull it over, try to see where other people are coming from. And I'm not saying you have to understand where anyone's coming from, because you probably won't. I mean, who would know that that was something that was a trigger for you for work issues, that it's a long-standing issue for you?
Just people who do that kind of work. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But we all have that, was my point.
Yeah,
And it's,
different things.
and if you can just look at something and go, well, I don't understand it because that's not my life experience, but they don't have to be wrong or bad, or Jonathan doesn't have to be bad because he reacted. They don't have to be bad because they reacted, or none of that. It's just a human thing. We
Doesn't matter
all
that
have.
the facts might have been wrong.
Yeah.
This is how I felt given these circumstances.
Exactly. That's really what
in
it's
my
about.
life experiences. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's how I felt. I didn't understand how I felt. That's what I felt. I was in my emotions.
Certainly, it gives us an opportunity to do that. And what this show's all about, we were recapping where we were because of the impact it's had on us, but we want to check in with the fans too, because they're going to be at different places in processing, coming at it from lots of different angles.
Even in what day they sent in their feedback, or how much time they had to
Could have
sort
changed.
through,
Yeah.
or if they're still in their emotions or reacting. And I found it all extremely interesting to see everybody's point of view. And it doesn't matter whether I agree, don't agree. It's not even about that.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. If I look at it from my calm place of, I felt like it was a great opportunity if you had the time and wanted to.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And sometimes Survivor gives us these moments. They're not easy.
No, they're not.
These aspects of life are not easy, and you don't get to be happy all the time, for sure. And it's not always an escape. Sometimes it hits you right in the face.
Well, and I
with
want
a
to
difficult, tough issue.
Yeah, I want to understand things, but I don't always. And I feel like I'm not capable of understanding that, because it's
I want to talk about that a little more in the wrap up too, because I think that's important. So we won't say a whole lot in the wrap up, but that what this opportunity provides for us, offers us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it because I'm anxious for everyone to hear what everyone else thought.
Yeah, let's get these different voices going. First up, we got a call from Pete.
Austin calling here. Oh, wow. Wow. That was a solid, very, very good double boot episode. Not predictable, even though we know what happened with the last tribal, the Tory vote out. But I really want to talk more about what happened with the Drea Marianne thing. That was intense and epic. But I'm going to let out a great big woo! And wow. So first, guys, well, Roxroy with that all-guys team there is blindsided, and it looks like he's bitter with High. Now, I'm a little worried, Stacey, about your USB High.
Mm-hmm.
I think guys are catching on to him like Romeo has. I don't know, and Roxroy seems like he's going to be bitter. But let me get into, though, Drea and the Marianne there. I just want to say, though, I didn't expect that at all, and I got to say, really and truly, hats off to both of them. It takes a lot of guts, to stand up and to speak up at what you believe in. The way society is gone, this and that. I said my love and respect to both of them. That really was awesome what Drea and Marianne did. Whether they win or not, or if they're voted out next, that was great. And they did the right thing with their idols, Drea and Marianne. Even though Drea knew she was a threat, and Marianne knew too she wasn't going to get any votes against her, but she did the right thing there. And it came back to the game here, Tori and Lindsay. And imagine if that shot in the dark worked and Lindsay went home, my jaw would have dropped. But it went to Tori, and we knew it was coming because she kept on winning challenges, and the right decision was made because no one trusted her, and she wasn't in any alliance there. And I think Roxroy simply shot himself in the foot by just trying to do that all-guys thing, and Omar and High and them didn't trust him. But man, guys, that was intense, and I'm curious, I'm disturbed there's no Ponderosa clips, guys. I would have loved to have seen how Tori and Roxroy, if they made amends at Ponderosa, how it went. I think Chanel was fine with Tori, but I don't know how it went with Roxroy. We'll see. I wish we could see those videos. But man, guys, so Stacey, I'm still pulling for High, but I don't know. I'm worried that Roxroy and whoever else is on the jury might be bitter. I'm even getting worried for Jonathan, though. It was great that he won the challenge, but I'm worried for his social game now. And he's clearly now, this showed, not a strategic player. Lindsay has an outside chance, even though we don't see much of her, but she's likable, and she could be someone that wins under the radar. But my pick, guys, I like General High, Mike, Drea, and Omar. Those are my top 4 picks there to win. And then Jonathan, I don't know now, because, again, the social and the strategic play, I don't know. Anything can happen. It should be a crazy finish. This is a good episode, a lot of content, and no Pope's fourth wall. But I'm missing the Ponderosa clips. Take care, guys. Great episode. Woo!
Whoa, thanks, Pete.
I agree. Where's my Ponderosa?
Yeah, I did shoot off an email, but the VP there of that department is out of office this week, so that's all I got in the way of a response so far. I'll let you know if I hear anything specific back with regards to it.
I think it's pretty confirmed and obvious by now that they're not doing them. So.
Yeah, I was hoping she might be able to offer some additional insight into
or that we could
what was going on,
provide some feedback about,
and that they would be back or something to that effect. It's just, that this was just a temporary, some kind of knock-on effect from all the COVID protocols or something. Yeah. Roxroy being a bitter jerk? No, I don't think so. His interviews were just he's really smooth. That would be one word I would use to describe. It was, he and Tori were getting along fine, and Tori's version of that seemed to reflect the same consensus that they had a good talk and they were fine in that regard. So I don't think he's tracking to be bitter.
Misunderstood, misread each other out.
Yeah, and they could have been very different had they been able to figure all that out while they were out there.
Though I do have a hard time thinking of Roxroy as smooth.
Well, that's my consensus of the summation of the overall listening to him talk and then reading his answers to the questions, and he had everything kind of dialed in, and he was.
Well, he probably had.
You remember how he was up on the hill when he was doing the hourglass when he was exiled? Do you remember how he was when he was exiled, and he seemed like he was in his element, and he was just really chilling, and he was taking it all in, and so
sure
appreciative.
He wouldn't have preferred to stay out there.
I think he even says that at one point in one of the interviews. But it was that same kind of vibe. That was what I was getting after reading the interviews.
He did highlight that, yes, he did get in trouble for
with his wife,
bored, nagging wife.
Yes,
it's like,
he did.
yeah, well, you should have known that was coming.
Yeah. Well, I think he even said he did, and then he did.
Yep.
So there you go. Thanks, Pete. Next up, we got a call from Robert.
Hey, Joanne, Stacy, and Survivor fans. This is Robert from Canada calling in with my listener feedback. I hope that everyone enjoyed this episode, though I think after a trial like that, it's really hard to say that you enjoyed it fully. I think when this topic of race comes up, it's hard because so many of us can't really identify with the feelings that those contestants are having, and those feelings are personal, and for that reason, they're valid. I wish it didn't have to be part of the game, because much like Jonathan, I view everyone as equal. And though I can't fully understand it, I acknowledge that their perspective is their own, and I can appreciate that point of view. It's unfortunate that the water and the waves have been so crazy this season, and even though it led to some interesting moments in that challenge, it's kind of robbed us of some of those sort of longer endurance challenges where it's truly a battle of determination to stay in the game rather than kind of a battle against the elements. But hopefully we get another one of those before the season is out. It was a pretty bad episode for Jonathan overall, aside from winning immunity. It's clear that his social game is pretty good, but I think you should probably leave the strategizing up to others like Omar or Lindsay. This week in the JSFL, I followed a pattern I've been doing of picking the correct vote-offs and then changing my mind at the last minute. I think joining the side challenge keeps making me question my vote-offs. I originally had Tori and Romeo, but it seemed so simple, so I changed it to Tori and Roxroy.
Oh.
Then at the last minute, I thought that maybe after the previous trial, they would try to shake things up, and so I ended up putting General High as my vote-off instead of Roxroy, but at least I kept Tori. Hopefully next week we get back into a normal episode. Really didn't care for the no voting aspect. I like the ceremony of tribal council and the tradition of how things should proceed. I think next week we're going to see some of the old alliances sort of disintegrate and new alliances form. And I think that Mike, High, and Romeo all have potential to be on the outs. I also think it's going to be interesting because Omar has been sort of running the show the last couple votes, and I wonder if people are going to start getting wise to that and possibly vote him out. I think Drea next week as well is going to be taking Mike's idol, so that'll be something to watch for. And so Mike might end up being my vote off next week. But anyway, that's all from me, and I look forward to hearing from all you other fans. All right, take care.
Thanks, Robert.
I like that. Robert just kind of accepted what was and moved along.
Yeah, good deal. Next up, we got an email from Tina in Virginia. Hello, Joanne and Stacy. I was planning on just being a listener this season, but yesterday's episode caused me to write in with my opinion, which, by the way, I have been holding in since last season when Survivor announced it was promoting more diversity. I think historical wrongs affect Americans today, and many biases exist, generally in favor of the majority race and culture. There is no equal playing ground, and as humans, we more easily connect with people of similar backgrounds, whether it be race, wealth, religion, education, hobbies, etc. So when in the last season of Survivor, CBS announced that they would commit to 50% diversity, I was in full agreement. Earlier this week, when Harvard University announced they would commit $100 million to address how it benefited from past wrongs as it pertains to slavery and racism, and also how this has affected the descendants of those slaves today, I was again in full agreement. I saw two entities moving in the right direction and felt happy for America. Last season, I listened to your listeners as some of them dismissed the importance of the CBS decision. One of your listeners in particular ridiculed what he called woke culture. I found it disturbing. Woke means alert to injustice, especially racism. I understand not everyone wants to be concerned about this, but if you are a person of color, you're much more alert to this because you're living as a minority in America and know how different people are treated from your own existence. Experience. The amount of slights, jokes, and exclusionary practices you face is different for every person, but it does exist and damages all Americans. So to folks that did not like yesterday's episode, I ask you to do your best to put yourself in those four players' shoes. All 4 African Americans seemed to be in agreement, and Lindsay also seemed to support them. I believe Jonathan did not understand what they were saying, or he was dismissive of race issues. There's a lot more to say, but I'll leave it at that. All the best. All right, thanks, Tina. Appreciate you sending that in, sharing your perspective. Next up, we got a call from Nora.
Hi, Stacy and Joanne. Okay, Drea and Marianne have other games and things they can watch that are not elimination games, and they don't hurt the feelings of anybody of any religion or race or gender, etc. They chose this game. That means they really like elimination games. So, when I was a young master's student, I did a master's degree in cooperative education. Then I started teaching actual humans in a gifted program. And all the lawyers and doctors started phoning in and complaining to my English heads that we weren't eliminating. We weren't getting the you have an A and nobody else does type of education. Okay, great. I did the old-fashioned thing. And I now am a dog trainer after I retired from teaching. And it's the same thing. Mammals in general really love to be better than everybody else. Something it's called elimination games, elimination education, whatever. And it works. People love it. That's what it's all about. Now, if you don't like elimination games because of your particular gender, your particular race or religion, then don't get into it, man. But it's not fair to walk away from all the cooperative games out there and programs and participations in various ways and say, oh no, Survivor's my thing, and then now you're going to politicize it. Yes, you did a great job, you guys, in being understanding, empathic people, and we all are. But there's alternatives, okay? You don't have to go for the one that throws people out. That's all. That's my feelings. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Nora. Next up, we got a call from Aaron.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. It's Aaron in Riverside. Whoa, he's gone. And Joanne, I remember you really loving James. How does Jonathan stack up to James? Just out of curiosity. See you guys later.
Okay, Aaron with a question from a different direction.
I don't really know exactly because I've not met Jonathan in person. And it is different.
Yeah,
when you
it's
meet
not
someone
fair.
Yeah,
she's got hugs from James, so.
Yeah, I've gotten hugs from James always.
Yeah.
And the thing for me, I think Jonathan is handsome. He's obviously muscular, well-built, all of those things, of course, as is James. But that aside, I do think Jonathan's probably a good person, but I've not had that one-on-one. There's a difference with James. He is like Amanda Kimmel, for instance. They both have that thing. When you are talking to them, you are the only person in the world. And they both have it. Amanda does it, and yet Amanda can switch it off. Like, you can say, oh, sorry, I have to change the stuff in the camera. She will shut it down. And then when you say, okay, we're ready, man, back on. And I thought, wow,
model
that's
protocol
amazing.
Engaged.
Yeah, it's like you would have to do that as a model.
Yeah.
But I was just so intrigued by that. But James was the same way, which I didn't expect. You know, to look in James's eyes and you think, okay, well, I'm the only one in the world for him right in this moment because all of his focus and attention is connecting with me.
Right.
That's how he makes you feel. And he's funny. You know, you don't think of him as being fun, but he is. He's funny. And he's a good hugger, which I'm a hugger. And so there's just that connection. It wasn't just how he looks or how he played the game or any of those things. It was just his whole being and chemistry.
I know Aaron didn't ask me, and I think we talked about it a little bit before. I don't know if it was just you and me talking or I mentioned it in the podcast too, but Jonathan's been the first person that seemed in the category of James in terms of his physical ability and what he could deliver. When you remember James knocking over trees to gather firewood, he would just go up and push a dead tree over.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was doing these things like Jonathan's been doing this season that just seem above and beyond the average human level. And the one challenge where they're in the water and they got to move the whole tribe from point A to point B, and they can only do it one person at a time, where they've got a pole that person, or two poles. There were two poles they could use, and the producers thought they were going to step from pole A to pole B and then bring pole A around and so on. They were going to work their way through the challenge. James said, step on, and then he held it, and with some help with the others, he carried not only the full human weight, but also the weight of this big, like, pole, like a telephone pole kind of thing that they were on, from one platform to the other. And I remember when we saw that, we were like, holy smokes. And even Probe said he broke the challenge. He just did it in a way, much like how Jonathan can do.
Well, just like he did pulling the boat and Marianne and everybody, he just took off swimming and pulled them all.
Yeah. Or here, I got the ladder. So.
Or looking out for them. To me, him looking out for them and getting them out of the water when it was so rough in that one challenge.
It's a very James-like thing to do, too.
Yes.
There's a moment in Micronesia where Reichenbach, they've got these big sandbags that they've got to get into the end zones, and you got to get them all there for one tribe to win. And Reichenbach flips Amanda and takes one from her. He's all the way down the other end. And James sees that, and he pops up, and he goes over there and just snatches it away from Reichenbach. He just ragdolls him and gets it and come back. And
Eric would not want to mess with James.
No.
But I would fully expect that I would like Jonathan equally as well if I were to meet him in person, because I would expect him to be the southern boy, the charming
Mr. Jeff.
Because I'm a little old short lady, and he'd look down at me and be sweet.
Yes.
So I would expect that, and wouldn't pause to give me a nice hug.
As he stooped down, being over a foot taller than you.
Though I don't hug so much anymore with COVID and all, but
okay. Well, that was an interesting aside.
That was an interesting question.
Thanks, Aaron. Next up, we got an email from Frank.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. I'm not trying to pick on you, Stacy, and I understand that in your reaction you had just about as much data on you as Drea did in that tribal. So I would like to clear some things up about representation in the game Survivor, looking at some of the numbers. Just looking at the data of the first 41 seasons, there have been 729 spots to play Survivor, including returning player spots. Total spots taken by, do you say BIPOC? You don't have to say BIPOC. Yeah. Okay, BIPOC players, 199, or about 27%. Sadly, that doesn't sound surprising, but there are some out there that believe gameplay is everything, and it's not based on skin color. Although seeing that in 41 seasons, 73% of players have been white. This clearly shows representation is an issue, but let's continue. In 41 seasons, 4 black players won, and you easily identified 3 of these players, but let's name them.
How did I forget Wendell?
I don't know how you forgot Wendell, but, because it was in the moment, babe. There was Visepia, Earl, Jeremy, and Wendell. That's all in 41 seasons. And it was brought up, how many black players made it to the finals? Let's add Dreams, Cassandra, Philip, Albert, Gervais, Will, Tasha, Laurel, and Deshawn. That brings us to a total of 14 black players who made it to the finals in 41 seasons. How many final seats have been available? 108 seats. In 41 seasons, a black player made it to a finals seat 13% of the time. Not a great number. That's not even a good number. The fact that 4 black players won the 14 and 14 black players have made it to the finals is all you need to know to understand what the struggle these black players have to face. It's not that they aren't strategic enough or athletic enough. Last season, Shan brought the gameplay, And I'm sure there's a list of black athletes who played Survivor who could rival Jonathan this season. Right now, there's about one black winner every 10 seasons. How does this make any sense? I am of Mexican descent. All I have is Sandra, the Queen, but that's it. I would love to see more Latinx. Is that
I don't
how
know
it's
for sure with
pronounced?
that. I don't even know if they like that term.
I'm so out of the loop.
Yeah.
You can have to send along pronunciations for me. So, Latinx winners. Did you know Ozzy, Angelina Keeley, and Susan Smith are the only other Latinxes who sat in those final seats? We have a worse number than black players, 4.6% of the time. Survivor is hard enough, but I'm sure it's easier when you see faces that look more like you. It's easier to vote off someone who doesn't. I get it. Players have to make snap judgments, but the loser of these judgments are always going to be the players who don't look like the others. These 8 BIPOC winners prove this game doesn't favor them. Only 8 winners in 40 seasons. Not 8 black winners, not 8 Asian winners, not 8 Latinx, not 8 indigenous winners, 8 total BIPOC winners. I see online people commenting that Survivor is being more woke. How? Because the producers are showing the players talk about these social issues and how it affects their game. Isn't this a social game, a social experiment? I thought it always was. Personally, I don't think Drea and Marianne did anything wrong here. I thought it was great to see how they saw how the game was going, and it was powerful to see them stop, take a step back, and be able to verbalize what they saw. I've seen online there are people who support what happened last night and people who don't. I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the conversation and add a little history and context. I love you, Joanne and Stacy. Keep up the great work and the platform to get different Survivor opinions out there. I tried to keep this civil because I find it silly otherwise. I know this is a passionate topic because 2 players spoke their truths. All right. Thanks, Frank. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I liked all the stats. I don't think people were voted out just because of their color necessarily, but it's what your stats really help bring home is the lack of representation that existed for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why we talked about even last season that we're totally in favor of this. Diversity gives better results, at least in my professional experience.
Yeah, and even to further add to that again, I don't think there's right and wrong. People are just reacting to their own personal emotions, and there's no right or wrong. It just is.
Thanks, Frank. I know it takes time to pull all that stuff together.
Absolutely, but it's something Stacy would do.
Next up, we got a call from Sophie-n-Leila.
Hey everybody, this is Sophie-n-Leila again in Texas. Leila, what did you think of the episode?
I thought it was really interesting. I really liked the challenges it did, but I also thought that it was pretty dangerous about how they split them up into 2 teams, and one would go to tribal council first and then one after. And that did end up in the result of the conversation at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and probably not for the better. I don't mind it sort of going on for a little bit, but it really kind of did drag, and my husband and son didn't like it. And in the end, they were hoping that Marianne or Dre would be voted out next week. It's fine. It's nice to have conversations like that. And I can understand them feeling shocked, I guess, when they walked in and just seeing 2 black people there. And it's sad that it made such an impact on them. I'm glad that the idols are removed, at least. I did have Marianne going and Romeo going. And I had Tori safe, and who else safe? And Roxway safe. So, yeah, it was a crazy episode. I thought I've been saving them, I've been holding out, and Tori's my winner pick, but it's a shame it came down to her and Lindsay. I think Tori was actually a better player. However, Lindsay did really well in the challenge, right? Balancing.
Yeah.
What did you think of Jonathan being with a group?
I felt bad for him because they were going to have an alliance that was just boys, and then he got put on the all-girls team. But I think it was good because it made the girls figure out that he was kind of bossy in a way, and I guess they didn't like that, so I guess they'll figure out some way to stop that.
Well, we've seen better episodes. It was good until Tribal, in my opinion. However, if it starts conversations, then that's a good thing. We don't know who's going out next week. Who do you think?
I don't know.
Who's not liked? Probably Hai. Okay,
Romeo.
yeah, I don't like Hai, how bossy he's being.
I don't like Romeo.
Oh, I like Romeo better than Hai.
I feel like Hai's a lot more strategic.
Yeah, it's like he also doesn't listen. Like, it's either his way or the highway. It's a bit domineering.
True.
Okay, but we'll see. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, Sophie. Thanks,
Wow.
Leila.
I don't know how Sophie could have taken a bigger hit. I think that was the maximum hit you can take
Yeah.
in
Or
one episode.
With outside of having run out of save points for people, like if you had spent them all for the people who were left or something like
yeah,
that.
and you had no, but yeah.
But that's a pretty bad wallop to take in one round.
Well, we'll hope for better for you next week, Sophie.
Mm-hmm.
And me too.
Next up, we got a call from Drew.
Hey, Jim and Stacy. Hey, everyone. This is Drew. I am stuck in, traffic. I'm on the freeway going to work for an afternoon shift, but I just finished listening to the recap show. I finished the episode last night. I just want to get this out of the way so I don't forget. I get my thoughts out. I'm going to try to be very succinct and gentle about this, okay? I thought that the first half of the episode was fine. Things took a pretty gnarly turn as far as I'm concerned in the second tribal council. I actually really appreciated your treatment of that exchange. I thought that kind of helped me process some stuff, but I've been having some conversations on the group too. It's been interesting. But I just think that something happened with the editing. What I've kind of landed on is that something happened with the editing this episode that changed the whole feeling of the storytelling, the characters, the season in general. And I'm struggling with that. So mostly all I want to say is, like what you were talking about, coincidence, I think that's a huge thing. I think my girl Drea is way off. I think Jonathan was 100% correct in the one thing he was at least shown to be allowed to say at tribal council, because after that he was kind of shamed into silence and forced to listen. But it's not fair to say that he was going to vote Drea out because of her race. It's just not fair. It's not fair to say that's why Chanel and Rossroy were voted out. Everyone's been talking about how Chanel's game has been garbage, and Rossroy has been like a pill to everyone since the beginning. So it's just not fair. I feel like Drea was making a knee-jerk reaction. I think that Marianne kind of piggybacked on that, and then it just kind of spiraled. And I think I could see in Drea's processing of that by the end of the tribal council. I felt like she kind of regretted how she immediately responded to what was going on. It seemed to me that she might have come to the realization that maybe she was not overreacting, but just not reacting accurately in the context of the game. She didn't know all the details. She didn't know all the facts, even though, like you said, she played a part. And Chantel, I think that Tori was absolutely friggin' classy in the way she handles herself on the way out. I think that Romeo is a complete turd at this point. I think that Hai is in huge trouble. All these character shifts. It's like suddenly Jonathan goes from a complete hero to a sexist, racist moron in a matter of 15 minutes. And it seems so unfair. And I feel like Jeff is just delighted with the whole thing. So it kind of upsets me. But again, yeah, I did. How does Nina do it? She predicts. How does she do it? I got one vote out point, and I'm happy enough with that. But I will listen to the feedback because I think it will help me to continue to process this. And yeah, this episode is going to be a grab bag no matter what. But we'll see what happens next. Talk to you guys later. Have a good weekend. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Drew. I recognize Drew's "it's not fair." That's my big trigger. Anything that's not fair, just I'm off and running with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I recognize that. I heard it over and over. That oh yeah, yep, that's what gets me going. When I think something's not fair, and but I do hope that that you have the same kind of resolution that Stacey and I have had, because I feel very peaceful about it and almost happy. Because I just feel like we gained something, you and I. And so, I don't know. I feel good about it. So, all right. Thanks, Drew. Up next, we hear from Laurel, a.k.a. Brian Hedick Save Us, from North Carolina.
Greetings and salutations, Survivor fans. Time is a precious commodity, and I'm thankful that Joanne and Stacy spend some of theirs making this lovely product. I found this episode to be the most revealing of the season, and I think the final chess pieces have now been revealed. Before this episode, I felt Omer and Hai were playing the best strategic game, with Omer ahead slightly, but sometimes the obvious move is the hardest to see. Hai followed Omer's lead and allowed Romeo, a player that wrote his name down previously, to stay in the game. Oh, what a pivotal mistake. Instead of keeping Roxroy, who wanted to form a male alliance and therefore not target them, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. There is no doubting Omer's ability to sway an audience to his side, but in this case he was his own worst enemy. I predict Romeo will serve Hai a dish best served cold next episode. We can also take Jonathan's chess piece off the board. While he may have won individual immunity and strutted over to Jeff like Conor McGregor, his strategic game may be on par with his puzzle-solving skills. I wanted to dip my toe in these choppy waters and say that I have empathy for any player on a game show carrying the burden of their race, gender, or religion as if they were a prominent head of state or a beloved icon. That's a tough way to view your role in this world. The good news is Drea and Marianne will have had the opportunity to see exactly why Roxroy was on the jury. I hope that provides them some comfort, and I hope they realize that it was their strength vis-a-vis their awards and idols that made them formidable competitors and not their race. I also feel empathy for the players that voted out Roxroy. Jeff asked Drea if she thought Roxroy being on the jury was race-related. Drea said subconsciously a little of that. That must have been tough for them to hear. My USB is Marianne, and I'm feeling more confident than ever that a jury will fight for her to win, even if she might not have the best resume. We shall see. Thanks, Laurel. Up next, we got a call from David.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. It's David in Pittsburgh. Wow, this past episode was really an emotional one. I have to admit that watching it, I really was listening intently to Drea and Marianne talking about what they had to put up with, and it was only in rewatching it the next day that I got the full emotional impact of it. It really must be a burden to be there feeling like you're representative of a race or group of people, so I can understand how difficult that must be for them. I thought that if they hadn't had the tribal councils back-to-back and Roxroy was voted out, that was a definite signal to Drea to play her idol, whether she needed to or not. It was sort of like when Hai was caught with Daniel backstabbing him, and he had to realize he's going to have to up his game, and I think that's what Drea finally did. So with all that ammunition, I'm glad she played it. We'll see what she does with the rest of it now. As for the others, I'm watching Omar starting to get the winner's edit, unless he's riding for a fall, but he seems to be getting people together, putting pieces together, and having them work. So I'm really impressed with that. Also, I was very impressed with Lindsay. I thought she handled the situation well also. I don't think that the players were using race as a criteria for getting members out, but subconsciously that could be there because, you know, they're sticking with people that they know, people that they identify with. I'm also watching Romeo's trajectory go down, down, down. As I said last week, I have no idea what happened to him. One point he was in a good spot. Now they're calling him Dead Man Walking, and his comments were really immature after the vote out when he was spared. So I don't get that. And now watching Jonathan, yep, he finally wins individual immunity, and just really, I know when he was strutting over there, I thought it was funny because he was sort of showing off, but once he started to not listen to Lindsay and just start telling people how to play, I thought, oh, no. We're watching the fall of Jonathan right now. And I'm hoping in the preview or the next episode where Mike is saying Hai lied to him, I hope that's a misdirect, because I think right now those two are working together so well, and I hope they can make it to the final three. Anyway, talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, that reminds me of something Drew said as well about the editing changing things around. And I thought, well, they've always done that to us. They manipulate us, manipulate our emotions by what they choose to show in specific episodes. Doesn't mean, something like the interaction between Jonathan and Lindsay hasn't happened before, but they haven't shown us it before. So I do think, and I think they were maybe manipulating that a little in order to go into the tribal, because when they're editing, they know what's already happened. So
Sure.
they are trying to tell a story that leads up to that, but they want it to go where they want it to go because they know what's beyond that too. So they have a bigger view of things that they want to move toward and tell this story. So, yeah, I do think that the editing had something to do with some of the stuff, but not everything, maybe. But.
Sure, we are constantly manipulated by the edit. That's true. At the same time, Jonathan clearly said, I've held back until this exact moment. I've got
true.
Immunity. I'm going to push hard.
Yeah,
I'm going deep
yeah.
into the paint.
So he let loose.
He didn't hold back, which is his
which
big
is
thing.
what he said he was doing.
Yeah.
You're right. That he did
And
say that.
likewise, Omer said, I can work with Romeo. I cannot work with Roxroy. He's inflexible. And therefore, I'm going to try to do this. And he already knew that Hai had a similar view of it, and he was able to build that consensus.
Well, I wonder, too, the whole idea of Hai had the knowledge that Jonathan and Mike wanted to bring Roxroy along as their fourth.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't like Romeo.
They didn't include him for sure. I don't know if they don't like him.
So, well, they weren't cultivating him, in other words.
Including, yeah.
Yeah. And so Hai might have some advantage to keeping Romeo around because the other people weren't drawn to bringing him along, and he would be an easy vote off. But Roxroy might have been somewhat of a threat in case they decided, well, hey, we'll just get rid of Hai and just bring Rox, and we'll still be better off. And
I'd say one of the biggest things that the edit didn't share with us is how Mike and Hai came to an understanding, because Mike did end up voting for Roxroy, even though we clearly saw him saying he didn't want to do that because it's going to mess with the trust of the bigger majority alliance. But he ended up going against it, and that means it's on now. You come back and you've taken a step, and he didn't have to. They didn't have to have Mike's vote to do that.
What I was thinking.
So,
he didn't really have to vote that way.
Somehow they came to the conclusion that now is the time to make a move.
They chose to vote together, even though he didn't agree with the vote.
And knew that this was going to, at least Hai knew this was going to destabilize, and I was sure he and Mike talked about it because he and Mike were in that core group that thought that they needed Roxroy at one point.
Okay, let's get back to what other people have to say.
Sure.
Up next, we have a call from Parker.
Hey, it's Parker from Indiana, and I'm trying my best to be quick. I've recorded this feedback so many times, and I keep rambling on and on. Basically, I feel like we're going to hear a lot about the tribal, so I won't touch that too much. I just want to say that I'm disappointed in Jonathan. I feel like we're now starting to see the Jonathan I was afraid of seeing from preseason, just like a big, dumb, cocky guy. And as soon as he got that necklace, that side came through. He was so dismissive of Lindsay, even though she was right. And at Tribal, just handled that situation so poorly. Lindsay handled that situation the best. Jonathan and Tori kept butting in, like, just shut up. From the perspective of a white, privileged person, just shut up. You don't have to add that much to the conversation. Just listen and learn from it. Because, like, Drea and Marianne, whatever they feel is validated. Because, like, who are we to say, oh, what you're feeling is wrong? You can't feel that. You're wrong. And I think Lindsay handled that best. But moving away from that, I think that Omar is the star of this episode, even though Drea is number 2. But Omar really, once again, just carried the game strategically, which he keeps doing, and it's great to watch. It's so much fun. I love watching Omar just kind of run the field strategically. He's probably the best strategic player we've had in a while. So it's been really fun to watch him, and I hope that he keeps succeeding and making it far, and especially because he's my USB, but not just that. He's like the person I root for the most like I said, Drea is number 2. She, even before Tribal, had an inkling that something was fishy from how Jonathan was acting, which is great on her part. And just kind of with the, like, hey, I'm going to play my idol no matter what. I really love that. I put High as my number 4. Even though some of you guys are down on High, I still love High. I think he's great. I think he's a great strategic player. He just can't get that much traction, which is disappointing, but I love him. And then Lindsay is my number 4, just because of how well she carried Tribal, and she was right about the vote, and she tried to explain that to Jonathan, and he just completely shut her down. I had Romeo and Tori as my vote-offs, so I'm happy about Tori. I didn't have Roxor save, so everything went well for me this episode. And I enjoyed it, even though it is a controversial ending, so I have to read all these tweets about what happened and yada, yada, yada. I enjoyed it. I think it was solid, a solid episode. That is all I got, and I will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Parker.
I think Parker's right in that he's basically saying just have compassion or at least tolerance for someone's, some kind of compassion for their pain. Mm-hmm. You don't have to agree with or understand, or you see someone's in pain. Have some compassion or at the very least tolerance of what they are going through.
That seemed to be Lindsay's primary example, didn't it?
Yes, it is.
Next up, we got an email from Shahin in Australia.
Hi, Joanne and Stacy. Hope you are both well. An email will have to do as it's very late here. Usually I go into how good of an episode the episode was, but it's hard to evaluate with the Tribal Council having such an impact on the viewing experience. The surge of diversity within contestant selection has no doubt enriched the game of Survivor, both on a strategic level within the game, but the entertainment value. Through these mediums, we begin to understand social complexities we otherwise wouldn't understand, and I appreciated it more in season 41 than any other season. However, I felt that this episode lost its balance, and if we had to evaluate gameplay, it simply wasn't there. The vote-outs were the most strategically unintelligible moves. Roxroy had at this point established himself as a GOAT. He had no currency, and Tori, whilst building a resume with those immunity wins, had no way to win over a jury if she made it to the end. General High lost points and is a reason why I didn't choose him as my USB. I've sensed his game has become more emotional than strategic, and agree with Mike that it leaves them, or him, as it appears, at the bottom. Unfortunately, this became the catalyst for our second poor vote-off, and again, whilst I understand the need to expose the audience to such topics, the gameplay was completely lost. I think Marianne made a strategically bad move and didn't need to sacrifice her idol to make a statement, which from my point of view was made by Drea. For what it's worth, I thought we'd see some strategy and had Romeo and Marianne gone, and it looked likely for one, but if not both, but other plans got in the way. Omar is my USB. He's really playing under the radar and making subtle moves without overexposing himself. But Drea is in a really good spot too. My head is with Omar, but my heart is with Mike. I love him and how accepting he is of everyone, and I hope he wins. But he and that dude alliance is in trouble. I have him or Jonathan leaving next week. Thanks for all you do. Cheers. All right, and thank you, Shahin. We appreciate you staying up late and getting your feedback in. Mm-hmm. Up next, we have a call from Tito.
Hello, Joanne, Stacy, and all you other Survivor fans out there. This is Tito Burrito, calling from Philadelphia, previously Boston. And yeah, just going to give you my quick 2 cents. I actually had to watch the Tribals twice, just because I wanted to really get it. Because at first I was, oh geez, here we go again. But it took me a while to kind of understand what exactly Drea and Marianne were feeling. And I do understand, because it really is essentially this. When they walked in and just you see two people there who look like you, who you have essentially created some sort of association with, that you have a bond and a brotherhood. And if you see them, your defenses go up. Because the trajectory is not just inside the game, like Marianne said, it's outside of the game as well. So if someone from the outside of the game, like me, sees two people back to back go, and then we see another person go again, and then another person go again, or however many in a row, it does create this imagery that whether it's on purpose or not that the voting was like that, that's how it comes off. So I do see that. And on Watchback, it was Jeff who really brought up the race issue, and Drea tried to kind of back it off and kind of soften the blow. So it was tough to watch. This is another moment where Jeff kind of puts in his 2 cents and makes it more difficult. I know he's all about social connections between the game and real world, but this it gets a little tiring after a while. But just wanted to say I completely understood that moment. And it was something that I, had to watch twice to really get. So, hope you all had a great time watching this episode. It was a doozy. We had 2 vote-offs here. I mean, I kind of expected Tori to go. But we had 2 vote-offs here that were, that got a little complicated. So, hope you all had a great time, and hope you all have a great week. Hope to hear from y'all soon.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks, Tito. I would like to go back and rewatch Tribal for the 3rd time and focus
I'm about
toward
up to 5, I think.
what Jeff, his input into the situation, because I don't think I've looked at it that way at all. So thank you for that. I will go check that out.
Next up, we got a call from Rashmi.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy and all my Survivor friends. Finally, Tori has gone home. Yay! I was so happy and waiting to hear Pete sing the Na 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 song. Rockstar has been on the chopping block right from the beginning because of his bossy ways, and now was the time for him to go home. By the way, he was sent home by Omar, Hai, Mike, and Romeo, all people of color. Unity and diversity, I say. Marianne said she would like to see a Muslim win. I wonder if she understood Omar had sent Roxroy packing. By the way, Romeo also made an ageist comment about Mike. Omar also said the same. I think he said something about older people not being tolerant of other religions. I do somewhat agree with his comments. Look, I'm 65 and I'm a senior's card and very proud of it, if I may add. Now, as a new migrant back in 1987, I was on a bus with my 4-year-old in Canberra, and a random old lady who's very well done up with beautifully coiffed hair just came and sat next to me. And she asked me if I was one of those people who worshipped animals. I was so taken aback I couldn't respond, and I have never forgotten that incident either. So sometimes it's ignorance and sometimes it's malice. I like to think it's ignorance. Look, Survivor is a social experiment, so it just reflects life. In the end, I just want to say, unity and diversity is the best way to get ahead. Hai is in danger, as Romeo seems to be gunning for him. Mike may not be too happy with Hai. I would like to see Romeo gone. Just can't stand him anymore. Still loving Jonathan, and the best player so far is Omar. Omar the vet for the win. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Rashmi.
I'm liking the diversity in our podcast.
Next up, we got a call from Noelle.
Hi, everyone. It's Noelle calling from Albuquerque. I've been thinking a lot about that tribal council. I hate that Drea had to create a safe space for Jonathan before he would let her speak on implicit bias. I hate that she and Marianne had to play their idols. And I hate that the Black Survivor players feel like they're the ones who have to fix Survivor's problems with race. Congratulations to everyone who got a vote out point for Tori. I finally gave up on her, and I had Jonathan as my vote out pick. I'm so bad at JSFL this season, but at least I'm loving the show itself. I'll take it. I think that Jonathan peaked in the last episode, and I'm ready for him to go, so that's why I had picked him. I love how the 2 makeshift tribes landed. That was great TV, having the men and women split up almost evenly, save Jonathan. Do you think Jonathan would have been voted out if he didn't have immunity? Things that I wish we knew on Survivor. I'm relieved Drea survived the episode, but I wish we knew if she was going to play her idol before she saw that Roxroy had been voted out. Again, I'm always so curious what we're not seeing because we only get 42 minutes a week. I really want to see her start playing those advantages to get herself further in the game. I don't like when people hold on to their advantages out of fear of not having them anymore. It was smart of Tori to play the shot in the dark, but Lindsay should have been allowed to play hers as well. And how do they decide who gets to go first and who gets to go second? It all seems a little potentially unfair to me, but I don't even know how it works. Are they all drawing from the same urn and there's only one scroll that says safe? That's what it looks like. Last night, Hai said that he doesn't want to be on team misogyny, so me and Hai are cool now. I thought it was a much better episode for him. I acknowledge that Jeff can be goofy sometimes, but we're lucky to have a host of the show who loves the show. I've been trying to get into Big Brother, and their host doesn't even watch the show and can barely remember the players' names. So we're lucky to have Jeff. I'm obsessed with the amulet. I think it's had a major impact on the post-merge game. I don't think we'd have that 8-person alliance without it. I'm glad it looks like we're going to get some more content on it next week. I still think Omer is playing the best game, so I'm ranking him first. I think Hai and Drea are tied for second. Lindsay and Marianne are tied for third. Mike and Jonathan in fourth, and Romeo at the bottom. Sorry, Romeo. I can't wait for next week. Bye! Hi, it's Noelle calling from Albuquerque again. I just had this crazy realization that probably everybody else already had, but I couldn't resist calling it in, and that is that the 2 people who were voted out in the episodes before this were both LGBTQ+. So if they had voted out Romeo, he would have been the 3rd LGBTQ+ community member voted out in a row, which is incredibly ironic and perhaps why they didn't vote him out, since Hai is also LGBTQ+ community, and maybe that's how he talked Mike into voting for Rux. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks, Noelle. I think it was pretty clear in terms of how it was presented. Again, the edit can manipulate you, but they didn't think Roxroy was someone they could work with, and they're trying to build their end game alliance, and so he didn't fit. And Omer made a better pitch for Romeo in that regard. I agreed.
That was interesting, though. Noelle, I didn't know.
Interesting theory, yeah.
Like, oh, well, I never even saw that.
I can tell you something else, that if there was anything that might have potentially pushed him a little away from Romeo, there's an extra video on EW. I don't know if it's been released anywhere else. And it was Romeo coming out to the tribe, and he hadn't shared that he was gay with the tribe, and he had actually been, he said he had been something to the effect of really intimidated because Roxroy was this super macho guy, which is interesting. I don't see Roxroy as being macho at all. But Romeo's perspective is different from ours. Yeah, you know, he's going to register things on a different scale, obviously.
Well, and Roxroy was extremely supportive
and comforting.
He was reaching over and touching his shoulder and giving him support as he was talking, and then got up and gave him a hug. And Mike hugged him. Everybody just kept. Everybody's like, "We accept you."
Yeah, and you're good, Romeo.
And he let it know to all of them what he did to Hai, that, you know, there are members of his family that don't know, and now I'm gonna go back to that, and I don't know what I'm gonna.
And so that was day 17, I think. Was it day 17 or 16?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think it was before they went to the challenge. That's how I recall it. So that could have been in the back of people's minds, and you know, they're like, let's maybe give him a little mercy or something to that effect.
Well, it's a human thing, again,
that compassion,
that brings up your compassion.
Yeah.
And it is harder to vote somebody. That's why, like Marianne was saying, I'm pulling the heartstrings, because she knows that can.
When she was doing the emotional manipulation.
Yeah, she was highlighting that's what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it does when you just...
So that could have had an effect, but that's an interesting theory. Yeah. Thanks, Noelle. Next up, we got an email from Josh, the plush moose from Massachusetts. Dear Joanna and Stacy, there aren't enough 10-foot poles in creation for me to touch this week's hot button topic, so I'm going to go straight to my usual silly observations. Hai was probably that kid who lost it when he got an A- on a test. What a beautiful characterization. I just love that's exquisite. That's probably more right than we would know.
No, I'm kind of been like that before, too.
I think Roxroy and Jonathan pushed for the Five Guys Alliance, hoping that they'd get another sponsored restaurant feast. Yeah, could be. Although Five Guys isn't all that from my experience. But anyway, I didn't want to join the boys in the He-Man Woman Haters Club. Oh, I love the Little Rascals reference. Man, I watched a lot of that. The Survivor gods have a sense of humor. They paired 4 women with a guy who has trouble processing the way women talk. Yeah.
It cracks me up every time I think of John. Well, let's think about that.
They had so much fun with him. I can't imagine how frustrated Lindsay was. She's just like, oh, he's an idiot, right? She said that at one point.
Yeah.
Hi, and Jonathan won immunity in the So You Think You Can Dance challenge. I laughed when Sneaky Weasley Romeo called Hi a sneaky weasel. Why? Yeah, it's definitely pot and kettle there. While watching the immunity challenge, I thought I'd accidentally switch the channel to Wipeout. This week's syllogism: Roxroy is a guy, Roxroy is rigid, all guys are rigid, discuss. Great. Short Marianne is used to people sneaking downward. Speaking downward. Okay, that makes more sense. Short Marianne is used to people speaking downward. Just don't talk down to her. Jonathan showed that he probably wasn't a member of the debate team in school, for sure. Or maybe he was, and it was like the worst debate team ever. That would be even funnier. Omer is great at working with big, dumb animals. He's also a vet. When Jonathan tried to follow Lindsay's train of thought, you could almost see the smoke coming out of his ears. They could have done that. The editors could have easily done that. It would have fit perfect, huh? When he had that moment. The Survivor gods made it rain to set the tone for the second tribal. Jonathan, it's fine to go hard in the paint. Just don't get a foul for charging. Yeah. Nice extension. Note to future players, if your tribal council day is mellow, that's a red flag. The All Guys tribe said they acted like guys today. Did they sit around talking sports? Lou Costello's I don't know makes me happy. Drea's made me uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but holding multiple advantages and an idol does make one a valid target. Yes, indeed. Why didn't Lindsay also use her shot in the dark? Were there only 6 slips of paper? God could have saved Tori, but he wanted a vote-out point in JSFL. That's beautiful. Yeah, exactly. If both Tori and Lindsay had successfully played shots in the dark, what would Jeff have done? Everyone would have been immune. Next time, will Drea use her knowledge to power Mike out of the game? Anyway, that's it for me for now. Thanks, Joanne and Stacy, for all you do. I can't wait to hear what the other fans have to say. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks, Josh.
I think probably they only did have one safe in 6 because they split the tribes. I think they have 2 and 12, right? Isn't that what they said? 2 and 12?
Yeah, which is 1 and 6. The odds are the same.
Well, yeah, but because this was half of the tribe, I think they went back to 1 and 6.
Yeah, probably.
In there
but
to draw.
I think it's 1 and 6 every time you go up.
But it doesn't matter if there were 2 in there and 12. It's still
1 and 6.
Same odds.
They would make sure that there was one in there, a safe, if Tori had picked one and Lindsay had chosen to pick one. The reason Lindsay didn't do that is because Jeff asked if the 4 of you were going to vote for Tori, and she said yes, which means she wasn't going to play her shot in the dark. She had chosen
she didn't
not
have time to think that through all the way.
Maybe, yeah.
Everything happens.
You could have missed
fast
it. She could have missed it in the moment, I suppose.
Your brain just does what it does.
Yeah, that's true too. Thanks, Josh. Next up, we got a call from Jeremiah.
Hello, Joanne and Stacy. Hello, SFP listeners. It's Jeremiah here with some feedback for this week, which was a very emotional episode. That final tribal council gave us a powerful moment between Drea and Marianne. As many people have mentioned before, Survivor really is a good reflection on life. That's why these kinds of conversations we had in this episode and some of the ones we've had in season 41 are so important. Individuals like myself, who are part of the majority in this world, really have a responsibility to stop and listen to marginalized people. In this episode, it was about 2 black women who noticed a continuing trend and wanted to make sure that it ended that night. That's it, period. And I thought they both handled themselves extremely well. I just hope these kind of conversations can continue in life and in the game of Survivor so many people can learn from them. Now on with some game talk. After seeing it twice, I will admit, I think I'm starting to really come around and like this idea of splitting up the tribes with 10 people after the merge for 1 vote. I feel like it brings on some interesting gameplay and can potentially break up a big alliance, which I feel like might be what's happening after this episode. What do you guys think? Are you liking this splitting up the tribes after the merge? Another question I have for you guys. Do you think we are also going to get the do or die twist that we had last season? Well, Jonathan's stock sure tumbled after this episode, didn't it? Yikes! First, you have the obvious, where he had that knee-jerk reaction during that final tribal council, which was awful. I am glad, though, it feels like he eventually got the picture there towards the end. But then you had all the stuff that happened before even going to tribal council. As you guys mentioned, he handled that whole plan so terribly. Yes, he did come across as a major misogynist, but really this biggest problem he has is he just can't listen to anyone. I mean, that is his biggest problem. I mean, that's what caused all the issues too there in tribal council for him. So, and another thing too, he obviously doesn't understand how negotiations work. You have to make it attractive for everyone. Oh my gosh, the whole thing was painful to watch. Then you have everything on the other tribe. Man, I don't understand why Hai and Omer thought it was a great idea to go after Roxroy. Really? Roxroy? Listen, I know he's a little bit difficult to handle at times, but he's not going to be a wild, dangerous card like Romeo's going to be. Romeo, of course, knows he's on the outs, and he's going to be a huge thorn in their side. I mean, to me, Roxroy is a perfect GOAT, and why they didn't stick with him, I have no idea. Like you said, Stacy, I'm a little bit worried now about my USB. I know they're trying to imply that maybe someone like Hai could go home, and he might go home. I really am worried about him. But for now, I think I'm just going to stick with Romeo being the next person to be voted out. So that's where I'm going to. All right, well, that's it for me. You guys take care. Until next time, this is Jeremiah from Southern California.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Okay, so let's go through Jeremiah's 2 questions. What do you think about the splitting of the tribes like this that we've gotten over these last 2 seasons, where they go back down to 5s and then we have to get a double elimination? You in favor of it? Do you like it? You think it
I'm okay
adds
with
something?
it. I don't have any objection to it.
I like it too, because it's a really good test of how you can manage and adapt and change.
Well, yeah, it forces you to, because you don't know who you're going to end up with. You have your alliance,
Exactly.
and you're all, oh yes, and it's us.
We're
to the
merged.
end, and blah blah blah, and then they're, whoa,
Not so
what's
much.
happening?
Yeah.
Who am I with? And you got to scramble, and so I think once again, don't burn your bridges.
Keep those doors open. Yes, all that, right? Give yourself some opportunities. And do you think we'll see the do or die? I absolutely do.
The do or die.
Yeah. Remember, Deshaun had to do the do or die. He went out of the challenge
yeah.
first, and so he had a 1 in 3 shot. The whole Monty Hall
I didn't
problem.
love that so much.
That's not what he's asking. He's asking, do you think we'll see it again?
I didn't like that so much.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
that's about all
wanna
you can
see
get
it, but that's,
from Joanne Jeremiah.
So what do
But
you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Probst, he loves it. He's patting himself on the back with his fellow producers about how creative they are, and we will see it again.
See, I just want
because it's the monster.
And hope that Jeff forgets about it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jeremiah. I do want to add one thing.
See how that that works.
One thing is the use of the word misogynist, and it's obviously come up several times in this episode, and Hyde used it too in terms of describing the All Guys Alliance. That means a prejudice against or hate for women. I don't understand how people are using that in these contexts. I can vote a woman out of the game, and it has nothing to do with her gender, or because I'm not doing it because I hate women.
Because you hate all women.
Yeah, so that word seems
misused.
I don't understand where people are going with that. I think Jonathan is a dunderhead and couldn't have managed strategic talk, and that was essentially what Lindsay was saying. He's just an idiot because he just couldn't manage it if it wasn't his plan. And
I don't think it's fair to say he's an idiot. What I think is that...
Well, that was what she said in terms of her frustration.
He simply doesn't follow through with his thought process, whereas someone will follow it through well, and they'll look at every option, every possibility that could happen. And Jonathan just goes, oh, no, this is great. Let's do this, and this will happen.
This will get the desired result.
But what if it doesn't? And he's go, wait, didn't think about that.
I don't think that meant that he doesn't that he hates women. I didn't see any evidence of that.
No.
Nor in the forming of an all-male alliance. Just like in the flip of that, you have an all-female alliance. That doesn't mean that they're all about misandry.
They hate all men.
Yeah, so... Yeah. Anyway, that was something's been rattling around in my head, and Jeremiah
again taps into your,
Jeremiah
and
knocked
you and
it
I
loose
both
again.
have the things need to be fair.
Indeed. Next up, we got a call from Paul.
Hey, Paul, Louisiana here, and that was another wild tribal council this week. But I'll give my 2 cents on that a little bit later on. First off here, we got to watch Romeo deny voting for High, but then just as High walks out of earshot, Romeo starts telling everyone that they need to vote High off because he's paranoid. I mean, that was way too soon to launch into phase 2 of making High look neurotic, and I'm pretty sure that no one believed that Romeo didn't vote for High. So yeah, that was a waste of breath on Romeo's part. But, that said, I also believe that he was on the right track with his strategy there, because High certainly was, obsessed about that one vote, even though he was sure he knew where it came from. I think High has more in common with Romeo than he realizes. Now that immunity challenge, now that was exciting to me. Those waves turned what was previously a somewhat ho-hum challenge into a monster challenge. But did you notice how Jonathan's floating platform wasn't really floating as much as everyone else's? With him standing on it, I think there were times when it was actually touching the ground under the water. Honestly, though, his float was far deeper in the water than anyone else's, but that was due to his bulk. I wonder how much he weighs. And it was honestly a bit comforting to see that Jonathan's logic for throwing a vote at Marianne was so flawed, because it helped me to remember that no matter how superhuman he may appear to be, he's just a man after all. Just like me. Well, nothing like me, actually, but I can dream. Okay, that's really all I have here on my notes before coming to Tribal. So, the first one was a piece of cake, and no one thought anything of Roxroy ending up on the jury. But then when the second group entered, that's when things got really wild. Drea's wheels were spinning in overdrive as soon as she saw Rox sitting there next to Chanel on the jury. But the thing, to me at least, is that Drea was seeing the vote-offs very much out of context. She saw 2 black people sitting there, but what she didn't see were the 7 others, 6 actually, that were voted off before Chanel and Rox. So, to me at least, I feel there was no racism involved in the vote out. And I'm sorry if anyone disagrees with me, but that's just how I'm calling it, Pollyanna or not. Still, I don't think that it helped at all that when Drea said that she was playing her idol, everyone went into a tailspin and started reevaluating who they were voting for. Yeah, her fears of being next to go were very much substantiated, and that's what made Marianne decide to play her idol as well, which also, in my opinion, she essentially threw away, but I'll also admit that it was for a good cause regardless. And poor Tori, I can't believe I said that either. I'm sure she suspected that it was game over for her when Drea started talking about Rox and Chanel, but when Marianne said that she was playing her idol too, Tori handled it wonderfully, even though she knew everyone was zeroing in on her, and the only thing she had that could possibly keep her there was a shot in the dark. At least she did everything she could. When you really look at things closely, though, you see that Rox was voted out by all minorities. I think. I'm not sure about Mike.
It's true.
But does anyone else wonder what would have happened if the tribals had been reversed and Drea got there first before Roxroy was voted off? So in the end, I enjoyed the episode, but the ending was so heavy that there was no entertainment in it for me. And I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that I wish we lived in a world where we could vote someone out, anyone, and not feel too guilty about it. Which in turn brings me to next to go. Well, I certainly wouldn't want to throw a vote at Drea or Marianne right now, so I'm leaning more towards Jonathan or Romeo. Jonathan is the fun part of the season for me, though, so I'm hoping Romeo, but I have a bad feeling. And I guess that's it for me. Everyone take care. Bye.
Thanks, Paul.
I think Paul pointed out another instance of the emotional response, which is with High and the vote that Romeo gave for him. It sent him into a tailspin, and he was just not thinking gameplay at that point, going around and did you vote for me? Did you even do? And he reacted emotionally again. That was his just gut emotional reaction, but we see clearly by the next day he had calmed down, was looking at what was best for his game.
Long game.
A long game. Doesn't mean he forgave Romeo for anything.
Right.
But he's like, that can wait, because I got to look at my best move in the game, which is exactly what he should do. But again, it was an emotional response that we saw.
Indeed. Thanks, Paul. Next up, we got a call from KimJ.
Hey, Joanne and Stacy. This is KimJ from Nashville. I had to call in and weigh in this week on this week's Tribal Council as a Black woman. I wanted to bring up a couple of points, and maybe that will help for some people. We had quite a discussion on the Facebook group about Jonathan's comments and whether or not they were fair or unfair during Tribal Council. When the George Floyd murder happened back in 2020, I had several people on my Facebook that just really didn't understand where groups of us were coming from. And I made a video post that said, all we're asking is that just people listen. Like, don't be formulating your response. Don't get defensive. Like, just simply listen. That's all that we ask. And I felt like Jonathan did the typical response, which is, how could you say that? I'm not racist. In that moment, no one was calling him racist. Drea, Marianne were just speaking to their experience and how they felt when they came into Tribal Council, and what was 4 Black people out of 11 was now potentially going to be just 1 Black person out of 8. And immediately people get on Twitter and go, oh, but they voted for Chanel, or only 8 times has a Black person been voted out first, or hey, 4 Black people have won. That's exactly the same percentage they are in the U.S. And it's just, again, people are totally missing the point. When Chrissy came on in HHH, she lied about her age because she was worried that people were going to treat her differently because of her age. In Vanuatu, the older men banded together and voted out all the younger men. Like, ageism has definitely been a thing on Survivor. And Jonathan has spent the entire season worried about how he's going to be perceived going in as a bigger guy. And so there's all these stereotypes on Survivor that people have tried to, manipulate. Obviously, Jonathan can't shrink his size. And obviously, a Black player, an Asian player, anybody else can't change their skin color. Somebody can lie about their age and different things like that. And people have in the past to try to get through some of those biases. And so I think that a lot of times people, they spend so much time feeling like they're being attacked and not enough time just listening to what the matter at hand is. And for me, calling into this podcast, that's all that I ask that anybody take away from this episode, is just listen to what they have to say. It's not about you.
All right. Thanks, Kim.
Well put, ma'am. I appreciate that perspective. I don't know, that helps a lot for me.
Yeah. I think that's essentially not as clearly as KimJ was able to state it there, but that's where I was coming to. I think that too, I read different news when I wake up in the morning. I'll just grab my tablet and flip through and read different stories or save things off to go back and dig into deeper. And I don't know if I think it must have been Thursday morning, I came across an article, and it was, here are the 17 different things that Black people do in America to try to protect themselves in social interactions. And it was the classic thing where if you get pulled over, make sure to get your driver's license out and have your registration in hand, so you don't have to reach while the officer's standing there over to the glove box. You're not making any movements. You're just handing it to them right there, and you're not doing anything that would cause them to be even more frightened or scared and to do
something
to cause you
stupid.
harm.
Yeah.
From that. And then there was other ones where ladies were talking about when they would go into a store, they would purposely go up to the sales associates and ask them a question or ask them for help with something, so that it would help avoid that thing where they might get trailed around the store being thought that they were going to shoplift or something. Anyway, so it was just like one thing after another, and it helped in a similar fashion to what KimJ was saying, which was I wasn't getting the bigger picture. I was fixated on this little piece down here that got me all wrapped around the axle. And the more important thing was look at what a lifetime of those kinds of issues has caused for Drea. And then she gets into this moment and she just gets overwhelmed by it. And this is the result. So I'll listen.
Yeah, there was obvious pain there.
Yeah, very much so. I don't think Marianne had figured all that out. It's Drea who's greater life experience and having to obviously have dealt with even more of it.
Well, again, she was just trying to process. Do I think she made the right decision
Don't know.
for her
We're
game?
just listening.
It's like, no, not necessarily, but it doesn't matter. It's what she needed to do.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
For
Based
herself.
on her experience and everything that and again, the George Floyd things were fresh coming in for 41 and 42 for folks, very fresh for them, had just happened. And that was, that and the whole chain of things were on their minds, obviously, coming in.
One final thought that I kind of felt like if any of us, but if I react strongly to anything, isn't that a message to me to explore, well, why do I feel so strongly about this? What's going on inside of me?
If you can catch yourself and break the cycle.
Strongly about it.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean you might do it right away, but at some point, if you're feeling that strongly about something, why? That's a perfect opportunity to explore. Why did I not just go, and move on? Mm-hmm. But you didn't do that. If you didn't do that, then why didn't you? It doesn't have to affect you. You don't have to let it affect you. But if it does affect you strongly, I think that means there's something more to explore within myself about why. And because I figured out a lot of things even once we became a couple. I had things surface that I never knew even bothered me, because you triggered a few things, and I think it's because I felt safe enough with you that those things surfaced. And it's like, whoa, you didn't do anything wrong, but I'm having a tremendous reaction to this, and I need to look at this, but please don't do that, because I got a problem. And then I figure out that, this or that happened in my life experience that makes that a problem for me. And please don't do that again, because then it will be an issue. I know you didn't mean it that way, or you weren't trying to, and I get that logically.
So that's what we got to see Drea and Marianne wrestling with, is them dealing with
emotional responses.
Yeah, this big burden that certainly weighs over people of color.
Anyway, that's funny, but that's why I felt this morning when we talked, we're still talking through things, is that, okay, wow, this was such a beautiful opportunity to learn something new.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to come back to. I said we'd circle back to this at the end, is that there's an opportunity for gratitude here.
Yeah.
And that it's hard to see these things. It's hard to see people in pain. It's hard to see all the confusion and all the ancillary effects that it can cause. And there's negative and positives that comes out of things. But one of the reasons I think we've stuck with this as long as we have is that not only is it entertaining, but it's helped open our eyes to different aspects of life that I don't know that we would have dug deeper
or
into.
had any exposure to.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to live in a bubble in our world for us where we don't have the burdens that Drea and Marianne and Roxroy and Chanel deal with on a day-to-day basis sometimes. So we can be completely isolated from those things. And I think I've mentioned it here in the podcast before, but I've certainly grown by listening to people. That's why I so value the listener feedback show. I knew we were onto something early on, and that's why we even changed the name of the podcast from the Joanne and Stacey Show to Survivor Fans Podcast, was that I was learning more about myself through listening to other fans talk about how they saw things and sharing their life experiences. And so it helped me, and I tried to integrate those things that I found useful in that context, and it continues to do so. And so I do have gratitude for these moments, even though they're not easy, and same as the moments from the previous season. Definitely not comfortable, yes. But, hopefully,
again,
like Paul was saying, we're looking forward to that time when Drea and Marianne and Roxroy Chanel and everybody doesn't have to feel a burden of representation, that they can play the game at their best level without having to worry about that. Because it didn't matter what Marianne did. I've seen people come at her just the way she was saying that they would have if she didn't play her idol. It's all that stuff's out there. But if you're open to it, there's opportunities from watching this show, which is another reason it's a great show, that you can learn about life, and you can come away with some insights that you probably wouldn't have had. All right, well, I don't have anything else to say about the episode. Are you good?
I think you and I have talked way too much.
Okay, yeah, that's true. So, all right, I want to say a big thank you for everybody who contributed this week. And we appreciate that, and we always look forward to hearing from you. We'd also like to give a big thanks to Hazel for your subscription donation. Thank you, Hazel. And I think we need a JSFL update. We weren't able to do that last time.
Alrighty. There were 17 USBs lost for Tori and 6 for Roxroy. 41 people lost a safe point for Tori and 119 for Roxroy. 165 people earned a vote-off point for Tori and 56 for Roxroy. In the side challengers with 39 points, Jeremiah and Laurel. 38 points, Cold Mike. 37, Drew and Rebecca. 34, Stacy. 33, Parker and Robert. And with 31, Justin.
Seems like we pretty much stayed in place over that one. I was hoping for a bigger shift, but that did not happen.
And if you play in JSFL, don't forget to make your Week 9 picks. For one person voted off and 4 people who are safe.
We're back to
only got 4 more weeks.
Yeah, we're back to a reward and individual immunity challenge, but it won't be in the water. Looks like it's going to be on the land.
Oh, I haven't seen any pictures or anything, so.
Well, if you'd like to join us in the next listener feedback show, you can call and leave a voicemail, 206-350-1547. Try that again. 206-350-1547, or toll free 844-643-8737. You can record an audio comment and attach it, or just type it up in a message and send it to us at joanneandstacyshow@gmail.com. Feedback's due noon Pacific time on Saturdays, and we ask that you keep it in that 3-minute range, because we're likely to talk for an additional 10 minutes after you're done.
And to be fair to Parker, it wasn't him that was sending it in on Sunday. It was his provider.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought we mentioned that.
I don't think we did.
That his email was delayed.
But I wanted to mention that.
He was a good sport, yes. And thank you for getting it in early, Parker.
Anything else?
Nope. Good to go.
All right. We'll be back here on Wednesday with our next recap.